All right. Hello, everybody. You're welcome to the first We Could Do webinar that we're having. And we have the wonderful Warren from Nudged here. Warren, you can say hello. He's on the line.
Hey.
And we're going to talk about 8 tips for your office wellness, 8 tips for office wellness that you can start today within your team without having to pretty much spend $1. And other things that you can do along the way that will always help improve the overall well-being and health in the office. As you can see, this is the landing page that got you here. It should look pretty familiar. You can hashtag Happy Office to keep us all in the loop with what your thoughts are and what your questions are. And along with that, you can see that there's a sign-up section here as well for any future signups. If you're already watching this, then you're good. This is how you're here. And then for the future ones, if you want to be a part of the live webinars, you'll have to sign up for future events like this. And we actually did something really neat this time where we actually put a question that you can submit. It can be your own question from the office that you have that you would want the guest speaker to write to answer. And so this time it was one office wellness question, and we have a few people that asked a question for that, and Warren will answer it at the end. And just to introduce our guest speaker, Warren, he's an international award-winning creative director and set up his first business at the age of 22, which is incredible on its own. His work has won several significant awards, including the World Intellectual Property Office Best Patent in the World of 2010 and the SXSW Accelerator Bootstrap Award in 2011, as well as innovation prizes in Geneva and Kuwait. And he's also worked with clients like Google and Virgin Media. And Warren, thank you so much for being here. We're really, really excited to have you. And along the way, if you have any questions for Warren or the Nudge team, you can always go on Twitter. That's the best social media platform for them. And put @Nudged, or there's also Warren's email address on all of the PowerPoint slides that we're just going to dive into. So Warren, you can say hello, and we're pretty much going to start.
Cool. Thank you so much for far too kind an introduction.
All right.
So,
Happy New Year.
If technology works for us, I should be able to take control of your screen and move us on. Perfect. So thanks everyone for joining. And as Lee said, we'll keep questions till the end. But today what I love to talk to you about is why healthy teams are more productive. If you have any questions that occur throughout the presentation, @Nudged with a J down in the bottom left of the screen is our Twitter handle. And we've got someone on Twitter manning those questions. Or if you want to reach out to me personally, it's Warren @nudged.com. So yeah, I look forward to hearing from you. So just to crack on, today what we're going to talk about is why health should matter to you as organizations. We're also going to talk a bit about what you can do about it. And then I'm a big practical person. You know, I come from a design background. I like to do things. So I think 8 things you can do today. So these are things that we found through our research and data and what our product does that I think are things that every office or every organization would benefit from adopting. So they're pretty broad. And as you can tell from my accent, I am British. In particular, I am Welsh, if that means anything to anybody out there. So they are specific in some cases to British data and British research, but the US is not that dissimilar. And in some ways, the problems in the US are more pronounced. We get a lot of our stuff covered by the NHS, our National Health Service. I've also got a section on how we can help. Both Lee's company and my company specialize in doing that. So if you've got questions, happy to help. If you'd like to engage us in any way, then also interested. And then we'll do questions at the end, which we believe we've got some submitted through the forms, which is excellent. But if any additional ones pop up, we'll answer them. Cool. So let's crack on. So this is our mission statement. And the reason I put it up is because I think it's not quite true in the world yet. So for us, the world would be a better place if everyone knew the simplest steps to be happy and healthy. And though health and happiness can be simple, they're not always. And particularly in work environments, it's quite complex to think about such large groups of people, and how to support them to have good lives as well as doing the job you need. So that's kind of where we come from. We're behavioral change through relevant data. So we're really interested in the psychology of being happy and healthy, and actually how we measure that, and then how we do something about it. But let's talk a little bit about organizational health. And 2/3 of employers are increasing their spending in 2015. So the general trend for health and wellbeing spend is going up. As an organization, we work in the UK predominantly with some large organizations. So GE, you will probably know. The NHS is our national health service that employs, in Wales, it employs about 70,000 people. And in the terms of a worldwide employer, I think they're number 5 in terms of employee volume, behind Walmart, the Chinese Army, the Indian Army, and potentially the American Army if you include the CIA, which is interesting. We also work with technology firms and high street retailers, a whole range of organizations. So most of the things I'm going to talk about come from our experiences working with real employers in real situations, ranging from science businesses like GE Healthcare, who produce health products and have blue and white collar workers, the NHS, which is a big health organization, GoCompare is a technology business, and Superdrug is a bricks and mortar chemist, basically, and retailer. So lots of broad experiences brought together here. And the cost of health is the kind of the biggest thing that we've found when talking to organizations. Is it's one thing to talk about teams being healthy and happy, and it's another thing to make it strategic. And the route to making it strategic is very much about making a case at a leadership level, at board level, because you can't improve someone's health or happiness on a dime. You can't do it straight away, immediately, and have that impact. It has to be consistently done, strategically done over an extended period of time. And because we grow incrementally less healthy and happy, we need to grow incrementally healthier and happier. And the cost is something that's really, really important to recognize. So we are a data business. So we went out there and looked at lots of data and did a meta-analysis of the kind of the macro costs of health. And based on all of our research, the average company per employee per year, it costs them about $5,000 per employee per year. That's an amalgamation of a lot of other costs, and it's a very average number. So you're likely to be different to that number, but it's a good broad figure to start with, and start looking at how you measure it. And the 3 areas that we would tend to look at, the big areas we would find those costs from, you've got the absence costs. So that's the costs of people not turning up to do their job. And when I talk about costs, I'm talking about bottom line costs here. I'm talking both lost value and the direct cost of absence. So in a sales environment, if someone doesn't turn up to sell, you could be paying them some form of sick pay, or might have some direct cost associated with the treatment for that sickness. But you're also losing that money that they would have generated as income for your organization for every day they're not in work. The other kind of models to look at are things like, so consultancy is very similar, billed by the hour. You need people in to do the work. But on manufacturing lines, it may massively affect your production capabilities to lose percentages of your workforce to absence. And therefore, making sure that they're fit, well, happy, healthy, and engaged with you as an employer is a good investment into your value and cost base. The second area we look at is presenteeism. It's not a commonly known term, but to summarize it, it would generally be termed as productivity lost due to ill health. The reason it's a less known term is because it's very, very hard to measure. The only real way to measure it is to look at 2 cohorts of similar size, of similar skill, doing similar work, and look at the maximum productivity capabilities of both to set a benchmark, and look for drops in that productivity while still measuring their absence, the workflow, the capabilities. And it's very hard to do on an individual basis. but presenteeism, based on all of the research that's out there, is probably a higher cost than absence. And one of the interesting things is when you look to reduce absence, you may go in with hardline policies or look to crack down on staff who are taking too many days absence. What you can cause is a peak in presenteeism as you force people to be in work whilst not engaged or not well. And this is where things like flexible working, flexi-time, laptop-based working, cloud-based working can support people to be both productive whilst not in work. And, good metrics of productivity are the real key to measuring presenteeism. And the third slice is staff turnover. Every time you lose an employee, it costs you a significant amount of money. And all I can say with all of these numbers is we tend to underestimate against the other benchmarks in the market. So we're not looking to make these numbers as big as possible to build our business case. We're actually making them as realistic as we can and probably undercutting because of it. But if you lose a team member, you lose their productivity, you lose the accrued knowledge, you have to pay to hire someone usually. That may be not a direct cost, but it could be cost in terms of HR manager time, in terms of trainer time. And then you've got the lost efficiency of someone learning a new job. And it may be a good thing. Staff turnover to a certain degree is a good thing to get fresh ideas into a business. When we look at the meta-analysis of that data, 10% is generally seen as a healthy amount of turnover. If you go underneath that, different sectors or different business cases, you may want to retain some talent for longer. You may not want to retain some talent for as long, but 10% is generally good. In the UK, I know the figure is 15% on average, so it's generally seen to be about 5% over. And so if you're above 15%, you probably want to look at that and make some steps to engage your team more, because all the research shows that that teams will stay for longer if they feel trust and love from an organization. A good place to look at the data around that is Gallup. Gallup surveys, they do a whole workforce engagement survey that looks at levels of engagement in the workforce. A stat I can pull out from the UK is that in a survey here, 78% of employees said they would stay for longer if they believed an organization cared about their health and happiness, which is a great way to attract talent, a great way to engage talent when they're there to reduce presenteeism, and a great way to retain talent. If you're not looking at health and well-being strategies as part of that mix, then we would say then you're missing a trick. And if your rivals are doing it, then they're probably going to beat you in the long run. The real challenge around health and well-being and a lot of these numbers is in the UK, it would be predominantly HR teams, so human resources teams or personnel teams who would own this as a project. And, they're not traditionally been data literate teams. So finding the right numbers to measure, finding the right KPIs for that ROI is a really tough job. It's one we've worked really hard on with a lot of organizations to prove the business case for health and well-being. Johnson & Johnson have some really good numbers and case studies on it from their time in the US, looking at how investing in health and well-being produces an ROI. And there are lots of, or an increasing number of pieces of data out there that show that correlation. However, each organization is individual. So, as individual as your cash flow forecasts or your P&L forecasts will be, your ROI from health and well-being will be that individual, because in organizations where people are your main USP or your main, value driver, particularly, that's where a health and well-being program can really accelerate. With organizations like Google who are competing for talent, we would term them to be BOBs, BOBs, benefit-orientated businesses, because they realize they're in an acquisition-based HR pool where they have to go out there and acquire talent, and they have to retain talent, and they have to compete for talent. In more traditional businesses, there's been more tendency towards policy over benefits. So, putting in stricter policies. However, in the UK, I can comment, at least we're seeing a big move from the lower paid jobs market towards embedding benefits, because the group buying power of making people, healthy and happy in their job versus the cost of losing them from that job produces some really good results. And it's something, if you're not looking at it, I would encourage you to look at these three numbers, go and talk to your finance director or whoever runs the business in that aspect, and have a really intelligent conversation with you. Like, feel free to take the recording of this video and use it with them, or reach out to me or Lee. I know in Nudged we have calculators that are based mostly on UK numbers, but again, we can adapt them for the US. We can talk about what you could be measuring to potentially produce the business case for this investment, and then track its effectiveness. As Nudged, we're not interested in ineffective health and wellbeing programs. Our entire business is built on making them more effective. Cool. So if there's no questions of significance, I'll move on to the next slide, because this is a key concept for us when we work both in public health and in workforce health. The idea of prevention versus reaction. So health reaction is going to see a doctor when you're ill. So you walk into the doctor and you say, "Doctor, I'm not feeling great." And he says, "You've damaged a pancreas. You've got type 2 diabetes. We need to give you insulin to manage the condition." Health prevention is eating an apple instead of a chocolate bar. And it's generally, the rule is that health prevention is a lower cost per person than health reaction. So by the time you get to a reactive model, you've got a really high cost for drugs, for surgeries, for those kind of things, and along the way that cost increases. So if you're halfway down the road, it's a portion more than being preventative. So the reason that generally we see people not being preventative is not because they don't want to. It's because it's very, very hard to do it in the kind of the non-data centric days we had previously, because there's a load of possible actions to prevent a range of different. I mean, when you haven't got a health condition, how do you prevent that? So you've got loads of different behaviors, loads of different actions, which could be eating an apple. It could be swapping to sweet potato fries instead of normal potatoes. It could be, cutting sweets out and replacing them with something else. It could be any number of different actions that help to prevent that, that insulin issue that you're having and the damage to your pancreas. And so to kind of summarize it, you've got a, sorry, accidental click, bring me back. You've got to develop broad programs to deal with those lots of people and lots of actions. And that's kind of what we do as Nudged, is we help to connect those actions with those people and those groups. And if you've got a health and wellbeing program, the idea that everything you launch is going to apply to everyone is not true. And if you were to talk to Lee and her company, I'm sure she'd tell you the same, is you find the group who are engaged with that thing and you use them to grow a community around them. And that will see a bigger adoption rate. But just the idea of moving to a preventative model is important. However, one of the challenges about it is it's long-term. Any preventative action happens before there's a need for that action. That's the definition of it. So it's very important to adopt a model that matches that within your planning. And the model we recommend is finding the marginal gains. Now, the marginal gains is a thing that's come out of sport. And in particular, we use the story of Dave Brailsford, who was the coach of the Tour de France team, the Sky team. And he adopted a model where they looked for not massive improvements in their athletes, but they looked for the tiny things they could do to make their lives better and their fitness better and their performance better. That included things like taking pillows to hotels instead of using the ones there, so they could get 1% better sleep. Testing different muscle rubs with different athletes to see which ones that athlete reacted to best to get 1% more recovery in. And so we would recommend exactly the same thing when you apply your health and wellbeing program. So if you're not looking at it as a 1% marginal gain each quarter, then you definitely should. And so the model that we've got on screen here is, in Q1, you launched some new initiatives based on some idea of what people are going to adopt. In Q2, you launch another set of initiatives and you hope the first 1% sticks, because 1% is cumulative as well here, you know. So 1% in month one, if you add another 1% in the next month, you've made a marginal gain of 1.01%. You know, it's all adding up. And so you launch and continue. Q3, you do the same. In Q4, you do the same. And so across the year, generally speaking, if you took a 1%, 2%, 3%, 4% growth across your health and wellbeing program, and you're measuring these marginal gains in your ROI through, you know, presenteeism, absence reduction, and staff turnover reduction. So some of them may take 12 months to even land, and being strategic about that ROI is important. Then across the year, you could see a 10% gain. Now, if we go back to that figure that we had earlier, the $5,000, if you're a 100-person company, you've got $500,000 there in lost value and costs that are being bundled up. So a 10% marginal gain on it is not to be sniffed at, and actually provides you with a lot of wiggle room to try things, launch them, see what works, come back, improve, and continue to look for those things. So generally what we recommend to our clients is looking at 3-year programs where we look for aggregation of marginal gains across those 3 years, targeting ROI based on those numbers that I talked about earlier. So we benchmark at the start, then we benchmark, you know, on a quarterly and annual basis, and we try and look at the numbers in parallel for each year. So September is not the same as November, is not the same as December. And the anecdote you can use is, you know, if you ask people to go on a diet in December, it's less likely than they will in January. Also, if you launch a running club in November, it'll get a lower uptake than it will in April. You know, for us in the UK, at least, that's the weather cycles that influence that. If you're in California, it's probably less of an issue. So contextualize it to your business. So yeah, so aggregation of marginal gains plus preventative models plus measuring the ROI. This is a strategic health and wellbeing program. So the next thing that I would share for most organizations and say that is appropriate is thinking about behavioral change models. And that's something at Nudged we spent a lot of time researching, and we have a lot of background in it. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out. But as a really simple model, I would recommend looking at the following steps. So the first step is health intention. Health intention is the openness someone has and the ideas that they have to change their health. And that will be specific to each area of health. So you may be really interested in changing your fitness, but have no intention to address your happiness. And you may have health intentions that are very, very specific. So you may broadly say, I want to be fitter, or you may say, I want to go running. And you may have specific resistances and have not thought of other things. So you may say, I've got no interest in meditation, but hey, you know what? I'd be open to chanting yoga or, you know, being more socially active and doing things as a team. So the key thing here is not to recognize that everybody's different, and that actually as a team, it's important that you prioritize your intentions across the whole team to find out what things you have in common and what things you don't, so that you don't launch a health and wellbeing program that is only suitable for the 3 people around you in the office and you're part of a 500-person organization. And that's something we see happen quite frequently, is health and wellness programs are targeted at the most visible people, not necessarily the people who need the program the most or the people who would be open to it if it was tailored to them. And again, that's what the Nudged platform is built to do, is that phase in particular. So once you prioritize your intentions, the next thing to do is disrupt habits. So habits are like shortcuts in our brains that allow us not to think about things. And the key thing here is we don't have to think about them. So if you've got a habit, to disrupt it, you need to bring it into someone's conscious mind, and you need to make it an easy choice for them to do. Because a strong health intention will usually lose to a habit, however strong that intention is. You need support and help to disrupt those habits. And what we do as an organization is we work on health intention, and then we offer ideas of how to help people disrupt habits. Because the phrase we use internally is that behavioral change is a team sport. like the African proverb that it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a team to make somebody healthier and happier. And that team could be made up of, yourself, your inner voice, your reasons, your goals. It could be made of your best mates outside work. It could be made of the team inside work and the health and wellness program. It could be an app, it could be an online community. But as health and wellness people, our role is to connect our team to their team who are going to help change their health. And the first phase of that is disrupting habits. To give you a good example of a disruption of habit, if you were to look at reducing the intake of sugary snacks, sometimes it's as easy as moving the snacks from one place to another, offering a healthy alternative at the same time, and messaging why you would want to switch. Because immediately, if you move the vending machine from one place to another place, people's habits are broken. They say, where is the vending machine and why is it moved? Oh, it's further away. Oh, and look, what's closer to me is a healthy snack. Oh, and it's messaged that it's, that it's cheaper, that it's better for me, that it's going to help protect me against coughs, colds, flus, build up my immune system, something I should do to protect my, my family and my children. And you can do lots of different things. Again, the number of actions is the challenge here, but we have some good examples coming up in the eight points that you can take away and do.
I was also going to chime in really quickly and say something about the less healthy habits and in general, implementing certain wellness benefits in your office. The biggest thing that I've seen when I speak to my clients is the first step is asking your employees what they want, what they would like, what would help them. So when it comes to wellness programs, asking them what kind of wellness programs they would like to participate in the office, or in terms of food that's healthier, get them to choose the healthier foods that they're going to be replacing if you guys are going through a switch, any kind of things like that. So asking them is a really big thing. And first of all, showing that you care and that to keep them engaged, but along with them, it also kind of ends up saving you money and mistakes along the way. So that's just kind of something that I wanted to little kind of chime in.
Yeah. It's absolutely not about taking away chips and chocolate and saying you can't have them. You're not the boss of that person's life, but you are there to hopefully support them to their benefit and your organization's benefit. There is a double win here for people to be healthy. And we'll talk about some of the stats of why later. But yeah, so the second step after disrupting habits is to create new opportunities, because we can't live in a vacuum of not doing anything. So, a lot of the work we do with partnerships and our own content is all about providing good scientific advice of what to replace those unhealthy habits with, because it's a misconception that we know what to do. Health is simple. However, marketing skews some of that messaging towards us. For instance, the soft drinks companies are often quite keen to tell you it's okay to have a soft drink if you go for a run. Now, you need to go for quite a long run to burn off that soft drink, and they're obviously incentivized to get you to buy soft drinks. So the real question is, what is a better healthy behavior? Because the last thing you want to do is disrupt everyone's healthy habits and introduce new ones that aren't so good. There are some really good broad rules around that. For nutrition advice, it's always eat less processed foods, eat more fruit and vegetables, consume less meat and dairy, and less like oily fish is a good replacement because it provides you the protein and more nutrition. But it doesn't suit everybody. And that's again, what we need to permission prime for, is to say, would you be okay with this? Like, can we help you? And the final phase that we recommend a health and wellbeing program looks at is to develop that into a regular healthy behavior. So a healthy habit, because doing something once, twice, 3 times is fine. But we all know what it's like to lapse back into an unhealthier habit, because often those unhealthy habits are a resting point. And the way I think of it is, it's almost like a ball resting in a dip of the ground. And, we need a couple of rocks to get us out. But if we don't rock hard enough for long enough, we go and rest back into that dip. the good news is that it gets easier once you've done it once. So getting over that first healthy behavior is key, but building it into long-term behavior. The thing that we've seen work most effectively is community driven. So when I say team sport, I mean like behavioral change is a team sport long-term as well. You need to feel valued, part of a community. And if you can identify yourself as, I am a runner, I am a cook, I am someone who eats lots of fruit and vegetables, and all these people around me value me for that, and see it in me, and they value my advice about it, and we talk about it, and I don't feel weird. Feeling health intention, one of the sections is social norming, the idea that you're breaking a social convention to not have a burger and fries for lunch. Like that comes from developing these communities. And we have the tools to do those things. They're out there, Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, intranets. It's not hard to start encouraging people to talk about, hey, do you cycle your bike into work today? Oh, cool. So did Bob. Bob, have you met Fred? Fred and Bob, you're cyclists. Well done. That's a community then.
Just to piggyback off what you were saying about building a community. I mean, we just wrote a blog post about this right after the new year about how to get resolutions. Most people, I think everybody at the end of the day has some kind of resolution where they do want to better themselves and become a better version of themselves over the course of the next year. And it's a matter of finding somebody and maybe pairing up, doing something like an accountability thing, bringing two team members together, be like, okay, both of you guys have very similar goals. How can you guys hold yourselves accountable to making that goal a possibility? And maybe creating a little committee out of that, that meets up once a month or something to show the progress of what they're doing. It's another way to build community within the organization that helps build engagement and teamwork and morale. And at the same time, people are, at the end of the day, they're feeling better because they're actually accomplishing their own needs and their own things that they're excited about.
And the message we normally give to employers around this is the model is facilitation, not control. Facilitate people to build these communities. Don't control the communities. Be very open about it because it's an added value benefit for you. And the best communities that are set up are self-sustaining. So you don't really want to be in control of them. You don't want to put hundreds of your team, your management team's hours into it. What you really want is your team to see value in being part of that community, whether it's your organization's controlled or whether you just introduce them to other existing communities that are out there. But the fact that they're part of it and taking an interest in nutrition or physical activity or mental well-being, that's a benefit to you that costs you very, very little. Again, it's an internal messaging thing. It's just dropping those barriers and moving your culture potentially from from one that's maybe a little less healthy to maybe one that's more healthy if you want to. This is all opt-in. So even you as an employer or you as a HR team or you as a leader in your organization, if you're not comfortable with these things, don't recommend them, don't do them. Get comfortable or work with people who make you feel more comfortable about it. So let's get on to the practical steps. So all that conceptual stuff, it will be released as a video so you can rewatch it. And again, reach out to me if you want to talk more in depth about it. We have a lot of science behind what we do. But the tip of the iceberg are the 8 things you can actually do. All of these are based on data we've collected and things we've done and worked on, and they're all good science. So they're all relatively safe to do, which is important when you're working in clinical environments like we do often with public health. So number 1 is about fitness. So up to 50% of long-term absence related to MSD, which is musculoskeletal disorders, is preventable with early intervention. So what that means is, we've all heard those lines about, sitting being the new cancer and desk jobs being bad for our health. And there's enough evidence out there for us to suggest that, yes, it's probably true. And the guidelines in the UK, I know, are 150 minutes per week of mild or moderate aerobic activity, which basically means 22 minutes of brisk walking a day. And you can find that brisk walking in lots of places. What I would suggest is, and we do it in Nudged, is if there's 2 of you, take a walk. If it's upstairs or downstairs, that's even better. Doesn't have to leave the building. A big advocate of walking meetings with Steve Jobs. And the reasons behind that are more around the creative. You change someone's space and you change their way of thinking. And yeah, so that would be a simple piece of advice that we would advise people with. And the way that we roll that out is potentially just a sign on the door of a meeting room that just says, if there's 2 of you, why not grab a hot drink and go for a walk around the office? Doesn't work for every meeting. Some of them need to be private. Some of them need more people, and some of them it's not possible. But if it's 10% of your meetings, so people are slightly more active a day, remember, we're looking for those aggregated marginal gains. We're looking for 1%. Lee, do you have anything that you've done or offer as a service that kind of covers that kind of fitness?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. One of the things that we offer is desk yoga. So an instructor can come into the office and teach your employees simple movements that you can do even at your desk to just help stretch your back and your neck and your wrists and the things that are often overstrained when you're working and sitting and typing a lot hours through the day. But this is really one of my favorite tips because it's so accessible and easy to do. It's completely free. And just with a little bit of motivation, you can get your team a little bit healthier. And that's one of the reasons why I love this wellness tip.
Yeah, of course. And it's yoga is so good for many other things as well. Like, the thing to recognize about any of these health activities is health is holistic. It connects, your body is your body. It's all connected. So, being slightly more physically active may impact on mood and happiness, reduce anxiety, all of those big scary words that as leadership teams we sometimes have to deal with. We can support our teams through not just direct action, but often through those softer side of things like yoga, which I'm a big advocate of. We've done it in the office quite regularly for a while. Cool. Next one, body shape. So body shape is a nudge term that we use, but essentially what it means in scientific terms is visceral fat, BMI, distribution of weight around your body. And the UK stat, this is a specific UK stat, is on average, obese people take 4 extra sick days per year. Body shape is a really controversial topic. And I don't think any of us should be in a position where we say to someone that they are or aren't obese. That's not our role here. Our role is to facilitate them to get improvement if they're open to improvement. So everything has to be opt-in. Nothing is judgmental or prescriptive. It's not about judging where you are on the scale. It's about helping you to improve on that scale if you want to. Whether you're a 9 or 10 or whether you're a 0 or 1, you get treated exactly the same. And a really simple way to introduce people to nutrition and body shape and eating better is to do things like provide cookery classes, or to allow grocery deliveries to work for healthier groceries. So, fresh fruit and vegetables are a challenge because they don't keep for so long as a can of something in a cupboard. And takeout is an easy option. But cooking doesn't have to be stressful and arduous. If you've got fresh fruit and vegetables, actually, you don't really want to cook them for too long. So things like stir fries, steaming, even things like pot roasts and slow roasters that you can leave on at home for without any attention at all, can help to provide your team with good nutrition that defends their body, but also maybe reduces their intake of processed carbohydrates and processed sugars, and high saturated fats that are the real enemy here in terms of a sedentary workforce with a high intake of sugar. It's a recipe for disaster. So Lee, I'm not sure about the kind of the US side. I know very much more the UK side, but is there anything that you'd recommend to add on to that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I love the idea of grocery deliveries to work. I don't think so many companies are letting the employees themselves order the things that they think that they would like and would help complement their day and make them feel better. It's something pretty simple to do, and at the same time would, I think, really build up morale. Some things that we provide, for example, besides cooking classes that are really fun after work engagement activity and good team bonding activity, is we actually have certain nutritionists, and Typically, they're really funny. They come with like a comedian background, and each one kind of comes with a different thing. One of them is just to teach overall nutrition to your employees during one of your wellness fairs, and other ones will actually teach your employees how to cook really quick dishes that you can bring to work that are healthy, that normally take anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. And also getting that same kind of wellness benefits after work when you're coming home, because a lot of the times employees, they're so tired when they come home from work that they're like, they do take out again. And so you find yourself ordering in and taking out 2-3 times a day and barely cooking your own food. So these are just two different ideas between the cooking classes that we offer and the wellness workshops and nutritional workshops that teach you how to make really quick dishes to take to work. These are just two things that we offer, and I really do love the grocery deliveries. I do think that's a great thing that can be very accessible and fun for employees to engage in.
And cooking is a great social experience again. So, you know, in terms of connecting people and making them happier, you know, it doesn't have to be every night of the week. You know, I'd love to say that I cooked every night of the week and made something healthy, but it's not always the case, because I run a relatively fast growing technology business and my life is crazy hectic. But I do know when my body is feeling run down, and I know when I need to spend some time with my housemates or my family. And at that point, it's nice to say, hey, should we get together and cook something, and put a playlist on in the background and listen to some music and talk about our lives and, you know, and have a good meal at the end of it. It sounds a little bit utopian, but, you know, if you make the choice to do that once or twice a week, it really will add up to a better life. But
I think also making it accessible. So for example, just like a little tip, you know, instead of, I know it kind of sounds a little silly, but I remember like in the last company that I worked for, sometimes the managers, in order to pick us up, they would do like a pick me up. They would bring like cookies and cupcakes, and they would walk around and pass them to the employees. Another thing that one of, you know, an office manager or an operational manager can help do is maybe cut up a few fruits and then just walk around the teams and say like, hey, do any of you guys want some? And so it's very accessible. It's cut up. They can put, you know, quickly toothpicks. They can grab the ones that they want, and you get that extra boost of wellness and health. And you know, the accessibility is right there. It's cut up. Your friends are passing it around. They're eating it. It's kind of engaging. It's fun, and really simple to do.
Cool. So next tip is around diet and nutrition, and kind of a nice segue there. So up to 80% of short-term sickness absence could be prevented with good hygiene and improved physical health. So hygiene is an issue within the workplace, and especially eating at your desk. And, you know, so I'm sure that health and safety within your organizations have already looked at these kind of things. But improved physical health is a big old term. With short-term sickness absence, they predominantly tend to be around cold flus, depending on your location, colds and flus, general sickness of the kind of dietary tract, or musculoskeletal. But focusing just on nutrition, vitamin C, a really good analogy for what it is it's like it's gas for your immune system. So in your body, you have a store of vitamin C that depletes over time. If you don't top it back up, when something attacks you, you don't have a way to defend yourself. So it's important to regularly intake vitamin C. A great way to take it in is through, you know, fresh fruit and vegetables. You can put the vitamins in. However, the benefit of eating a piece of fruit is it's not just one vitamin, it's a range of vitamins and a range of different things like fiber. And you know, it's something that if you can swapping out fruit and trail mix for biscuits and crisps or chips, using the American terminology, then that's something that we always recommend as a simple thing you can message internally. Lee, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you said it perfectly.
Cool. Then the next one is, again, it's a nudge term that we've developed in partnership with workforces around time pressure. So lots of people are not prepared to talk about anxiety and depression because it's very hard for us to take those medical terms and understand them. But time pressure is a term that we talk about a lot. And in a normal presentation for this, I would look around a room and I'd say to everyone, hands up if you're busy. And I can almost guarantee that 99% of people from workforces, from businesses, will put their hands up and say, I'm busy. And time pressure is the way that we capture that term. And so 20% of workers have taken a day off and 10% have resigned from a job because of stress. So stress is a coverall word for anxiety and probably low-level depression. Scientifically speaking, your body prepares for a threat by being anxious. It pumps adrenaline in. It says, get ready to run away from this threat that's coming to kill you. In a workforce environment, though, we don't have any of those physical threats that come from, the kind of caveman times. The threat to us is a sales target that we don't think we can reach. It's a threat around money, or impending things that we can't quite define. And if those things don't go away, what our body does is it keeps on producing this adrenaline. So we're always a little bit running ragged until a point when it goes, I can't deal with this anxiety like this anymore. I'm depleted. And what it does is it flips it. Instead of producing a get up and go hormone, it produces a sleep hormone and depresses us basically and slows us down. So if you ever see someone, when the pressure's on, start yawning, pay attention to it. Because if it's happening within your team, then it's likely, and mental health and mental well-being are probably a bigger problem than physical health within workforces, particularly in, high pressure environments like sales, then pay attention to it, because long-term it could be an issue. A good, simple solution is providing time management tools and links to training or books that help support them. Within Nudged, we do that. We offer people access to lots of different kinds of time management tools if they want to. And we have in a staff handbook a section on how to have a healthy working day. So yeah, it can be that simple. Lee, I know you've got some recommendations that you like for the time management piece.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually a piece that I'm personally very passionate about. And there's so many ways that you can help your employees better time manage them. One of them I know that we're getting into in a little bit with, managing texting and emails and how often you're looking at them. But if you also want continuous training in our blog, we have tons of different things. One quick tip that I'll say right off the bat is when I start my workday, instead of putting a full list of to-dos that I need to have done by the end of the day, I write 3 goals that I want to accomplish. And then in between my actual calendar, whether it's, a written calendar or a computer calendar, it doesn't matter. I put in the goals in the empty spots of my calendar. So I know by the end of today, I'm finishing those 3 goals. And obviously there's always compassion along the way. If you didn't finish something, it's okay. You can allocate the first part of your morning to it the next day. But cutting your time really, putting strict deadlines for yourself of how much you're working, and finding compassion and finding those tools that will help you personally, doing just a little bit of research. And our blog has a lot of different material that can help yourself and your team members be better with their time management.
Cool. So moving on to the next tip, work-life balance. From our research, what we would deem this to be is the amount of energy that you have to get through, or the amount of time you have to get through your actual life outside work, and your perception of that balance between energy and time of work and life. And the stat that I used earlier is here. It's 78% of employees state that they would stay long-term with a company that cared for employees' health and well-being needs. What we see time and time again is that doesn't just mean in work. Your employees have lives. They have to go to do things like go to the doctors, or, they have to pick up their kids from school. And the more sensitive you can be about that, the less harm you create in the rest of their life. The more you support that, the more that they trust and love you, and the more likely they are to work hard, stay, and hopefully be less absent. And a simple way to kind of look at that work-life balance is that you could turn off your emails after 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. And encourage everyone else to do it. if you can't do that centrally through your IT team, or if you've got teams that work on different time zones, so, we work with a company where Tokyo was a big contact for some of their managers, then there are other ways to do it. You can do it on a personal device. But my question to anyone is, when I get resistance from managers is, at 8 p.m. at night, what are you expecting to get from that employee by emailing them then that you won't get from them at 8 a.m. better the next day? And when we disrupt people's lives, you see it time and time again. I'm sure we've all worked for managers who throw emails out at midnight when they finally get Wi-Fi, and lots of angry stuff, and they're stressed and tired, and they upset your sleep. It's not a productive way to live. It's not an engaging way for your workforce, and it's something that will affect their whole lives. And if you can show and make a move to changing it, then they'll hopefully react and respond. Cool. So something that we don't talk about a lot with our employees possibly is happiness. But presenteeism accounts for about 1.5 times more working time lost than absenteeism. So it's a big factor. And though you might not want to talk to someone directly about them being unhappy, there are ways to facilitate that. And it's very much, again, about facilitation. It's not about, telling people to be happy. It's about saying, if you don't feel happy, that's fine. If you do feel happy, that's wonderful. And if you're not feeling as happy as you could feel, then we're very open to having discussions, or for you to have discussions with people who make you feel good and support you and addressing those issues. And whether you use professionals to do that, or whether you just encourage your staff to have discussions about their feelings. Emotions are a very difficult thing to measure, but they're a very driving fundamental within human behavior. They're very chemical in their base. They affect us physically, as well as just being this kind of ethereal thing that we can't touch. And so with every organization, if they don't have something in place like this, we always encourage them to consider non-alcohol fueled social interactions. Sometimes alcohol is a way to lubricate conversations, but by prejudging it that it's going to be alcohol fueled, it's not always a positive experience for everybody. And it also excludes those people who either have children or don't drink. So having a variety of ways people can have some space and time away from the business together, and encouraging managers to talk to people about their feelings and allowing that trust to build. It takes time, but you want your management team to be able to say to the people they manage, how are you feeling? And if someone's not feeling good, for them to say, I feel bad, and know that there's no punishment for that, because the other option is they say, I feel good whilst feeling bad, feel worse because of it, and their performance will be affected. Their performance is affected no matter what. You just don't know about the problem. And so that's what we'd always recommend, is some facilitation of talking about feelings. Cool. So I think we've got one more tip. And this one is energy levels. And what we deem energy to be is the amount of energy you have to get through the day. And it's an amalgamation of low-level mental health issues, sleep, caffeination, sugar intake, glycemic index. It's what we're capturing here is a lot of different complex behaviors. But from all of our research, energy levels will always come out in the top 3 of every organization we work with. And the top action that people always list off is getting better sleep. And we've never yet talked to an organization who have sleep as part of their health and wellbeing program, but it's usually one of our top recommendations because it's unifying. Everybody needs to sleep, everybody. It doesn't matter who you are or how you sleep, but sleep is relatively similar for all of us. And if you lose just 1 hour sleep for one night, you can boost your heart rate, it can affect your mood and focus. And long-term loss of sleep is really detrimental because sleep is our body recovering, processing information, dealing with challenges. I know that I've gone through periods where I've struggled to sleep and it's left me feeling really strung out and particularly mentally healthy, not very mentally healthy. It's really affected my ability to make decisions. So if you don't consider your team's sleep as part of something that affects their performance and you don't support it, then this would be my number one tip. Go and look at this. It's so important. And there's some really simple ways in the world that we live in to support that. You don't have to do anything about it. You can put the email amnesty in. You can, cancel caffeine after 4 p.m. because after 4 p.m. or whatever, about 7 hours before bedtime it'll start to affect your sleep cycle, depending on the amount of caffeine, and how it's ingested. But offering links to free apps that help your team to develop a better sleep ritual, we found to be very successful. A sleep ritual can be as simple as making sure you've got an alarm set for your time to go to sleep. You would be surprised by how effective that is at improving amount of time to sleep and allowing people to wind down. So personally, I have a 15-minute before I should go to bed alarm. So I know now is the time to switch off video games, TV, put down the book, get ready for bed. Making sure there's no light in your room. Having light in there can disrupt your sleep patterns. Making sure the door's shut so you don't get noise. And a major one, particularly in the kind of age we live in, is turning your phone onto airplane mode. And the reason that that's so important for me personally is I have a lot of friends who work on different time zones and different shift patterns. And, I'm sure everyone else who's listening has been subject to the 4 a.m. group Facebook message or group WhatsApp message or, drunken phone call from somebody. And if that stops you sleeping, if it breaks you in a deep sleep cycle, you wake up feeling terrible, you have a terrible next day. And, from all the teams we talk to, it comes out top. So recommending sleep apps would be my number one tip. So, actually, we've got a last one. We've put an engagement one in.
That's right.
Engagement is a big coverall for trust and love between an organization and its employees. And this stat is from the Gallup surveys that I mentioned earlier. So actively disengaged employees have 2.17 unhealthy days compared with 1.25 unhealthy days for engaged employees. Gallup do massive data sets on this, so their data is relatively trustworthy. And expressions of your health and well-being program and tailoring it to your employees, doing it with them and not to them, will help you to build a healthy culture. But I think engaging people in new interests, which Lee, I know this is kind of your specialism. So I'll kind of hand it over to you. What kind of stuff do you see working?
Yeah, it really depends on the company. I mean, one of the things I think that makes just WikiDo special in that sense is that you can really find an activity for every budget. And if you don't know how to manage your events and activities, we'll be happy to help with that. You can just send us your budget and we'll be happy to find different events and activities that work within that. And then along with that, always on our blog, we have different kind of events and activities that you can do even for free. So there's so many things that you can do with your team, from cooking classes to team building activities that don't necessarily mean you're in a circle and you're holding hands and singing Kumbaya. Things that they would like to do and would enjoy doing. And it really is a matter of, as you said, living your culture. So depending on the company, adjusting the activities to really reflect who your employees are, who your company is. If you're a wellness company, doing things that are outdoor, that are active, that have to do with mental wellness. Companies that are doing more out of the box things and really fun. We have lots of different creative and kind of kooky activities that you wouldn't even expect, or maybe you would do with your best friends. So it's just a matter of finding that right thing for you, your team, your goals, your culture, the objectives that you have, and of course your budget.
So, I just included a slide to explain Nudged, and I'll skip through these slides relatively quickly. But what we do is we help to identify the health intentions of your workforce. It's all based on behavioral science, and essentially it's a survey that turns into a set of analytics that requires no IT data or health skills to interpret or deploy. So our kind of phrase is we turn you into a health hero and not a health expert. And we're at Nudged on Twitter. Nudged is with a J, not a G. And I'm Warren at nudged.com. And to give you an idea, within a 100-person organization, health costs would be approximately $500,000. 10% savings of that is $50,000. Nudged per year would cost you less than $10,000 and would help you to set up each quarter to have the biggest possible impact. So the business case there is a $40,000 deficit, so you're making a potentially huge value saving. And for the want of a couple of cups of coffee per user per month, $7.50 per user per month for a 100-person business, plus all the intangible benefits from having a happy and healthy team, because you're asking them what they'd like to do. You may see increases in other areas of your business. But yeah, fundamentally, that's what we do. And if anybody's interested, then reach out to me. All of the email addresses and links, I believe, will be going out in the email after this webinar as well. So yeah, we'd love to chat.
Neat.
Also, I forgot, we've put in a special offer for WeCoulDo webinar watchers. If you email me, Warren, at Nudged, and just mention that you've seen the webinar, I'll hook you into our sales team with 3 months for free. So you can come and have a play around, and it won't cost you as much. So yeah, that's our little gift for watching this webinar.
And just in terms of us, we're always here to make your office activities and engagement events very simple. We don't have any annual membership fees, and we really just work on a budget basis. So whatever it is that your budget is, we do have a $1,000 event minimum, which sometimes can be flexible depending on new customers and how small the teams are. We definitely, our main goal, which is our mission, is to inspire happiness at work. We understand that each company has their own shape, size, and dynamics, and every company gets their personal account manager to guide them through the way, find the best activities for them, and make sure that their events go perfectly. And our event categories fall in between entertainment, wellness, and any kind of educational curriculums that you can imagine. Some of them that we kind of focus on today, like the nutritional aspects, wellness, like bringing massage into the office, and entertainment, doing something that could be like cooking classes, right? So it's more of a team building activity. And that's pretty much it. Anything else, Warren?
The don't forget the leave behind. So don't forget to measure the cost of health, because unless you've got a business case, it's hard to sell it into your board. Target absence, presenteeism, staff turnover, plus anything that's unique to your business. Prevention is tough, but it's worth it if you can start to roll that out. And the way that we recommend that is to find the marginal gains each quarter. So go for the 1%, and change behavior. So prioritizing, disrupting, creating opportunities for people to be healthier, and building communities around it. So, that's pretty much a summary of everything we've talked about. And other than that, thank you very much for listening. I'm Warren at nudge.com. And Lee, I think that's the end of our presentation.
Yep. And also, if you need WeCoulDo, you can put us on Twitter as well at WeCoulDo, which is WEKUDO, and it's pronounced like we could do. Like we could do rock climbing, massage, yoga, and you can also contact me specifically at lee@wecoulddo.com. It's LEE. But thank you guys for watching, everybody. And Warren, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to put a follow-up email to everybody who watched and for the ones who didn't, so they can continue to record, to see the recording and be up to date. And I'm sure we'll have you again, because this was a wonderful webinar. Thank you so much, Warren.
Thank you.